Welcome to CBSEasy.
So you've probably heard a million times that democracy is, the best system of government out there. But is it really? Like, what does it actually deliver in the real world? Well, today, we're going to find out. We're going to put democracy to the test, grading its performance based on what your Class 10 Civics chapter says. Let's see if it actually makes the grade.
And this right here, this question kind of gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? I mean, we all love the idea of democracy in principle. But in practice, sometimes it can feel, well, a little disappointing. It's that gap, that space between what we hope for and what we actually get that we're going to explore today. All right, so here's the game plan. Think of it like a democratic report card. First up, we'll check out its political performance. Then we'll dive into the economic report. After that, we'll look at the social side of things. And for the final grade, we're going to look at something super important, dignity. Okay, let's dive right into our first section, the political report card. The big question here is, how does democracy stack up when it comes to the actual quality of government? I mean, is it accountable? Is it responsive? And is it legitimate? So when we talk about what a democracy should deliver, what's the bottom line? Well, at the very least, we expect the government to be accountable to us, right? And it should be responsive to what people actually need. For that to happen, you need transparency, the ability to see how decisions are being made. And of course, we need ways to actually participate. These are kind of the benchmarks we're going to use to judge it.
Okay, so here's a classic criticism you hear all the time. Democracies are just slow. And this comparison nails it, right? You've got the dictatorship as the super fast hare making decisions in a flash, but then you have democracy, the slow and steady tortoise. Now sure, the hare is quicker, no doubt, but look at the finish line. The tortoise, by taking its time with all that deliberation and debate, ends up with decisions that people are actually willing to accept. So maybe, just maybe, that slowness isn't a bug, it's a feature.
And that whole idea of slow, careful decision-making brings us to a really important word, transparency. What does it mean? Well, it's pretty simple. It's your right, as a citizen, to examine how decisions are made, to look under the hood, so to speak. This is absolutely fundamental for holding a government accountable, and it's something you almost never find in non-democratic setups.
So, when we look at how democracies actually perform, what's the verdict? Honestly, it's a bit of a mixed record. And hey, quick exam alert here. Democracies are great at the big stuff, like holding regular, free, and fair elections. They usually nail that. But they often struggle with things like sharing information with citizens or, really getting a handle on corruption. So, they get a passing grade, for sure, but with a big note on the report card that says, could do better.
But here's the thing. Even with all its flaws, even though it can be slow and messy, democracy has one massive advantage. This quote says it all. A democratic government is legitimate because it's the people's own government. Think about it. We choose it, and if you don't like it, we have the power to change it. That is a really powerful idea.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. The data backs it up. This chart shows support for democracy across South Asia, and the numbers are just huge. We're talking 95% in India, 96% in Bangladesh, 94% in Nepal. So even when things aren't perfect, there's this overwhelming belief that democracy is the way to go. That legitimacy, that belief, is one of its greatest strengths.
All right, time to move on to the next section, the economic report card. Now, this is where things can get pretty tricky, because we don't just want political freedom, right? We also want economic development. So the big question is, does democracy actually deliver economic growth? And maybe more importantly, does it help reduce poverty and inequality?
Now, take a look at this data. It's really interesting. Between 1950 and 2000, if you look at all countries, dictatorial regimes actually had a slightly higher economic growth rate. It's 4.42% compared to 3.95% for democracies. But, and this is super important, when you only look at poor countries, that difference basically disappears. It's almost a statistical tie. So that whole idea that dictatorships are better for development, the data tells a more complicated story.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that democracy is definitely not a guarantee of fast economic development. But, and this is the key part, it doesn't really lag behind dictatorships either, especially in the long run. So you can't really reject democracy on economic grounds alone, especially when you think about all the other things it brings to the table.
But that brings up an even more important question. It's one thing for the economy to grow, but who's actually benefiting from that growth? Is it being shared fairly, or is it just going to a lucky few at the top?
And honestly, this is where a lot of democracies really struggle. I mean, just look at these numbers. They're staggering. In South Africa, the richest 20% of the population have almost 65% of the income. The poorest 20%, less than 3%. It's a similar story in Brazil. This shows us that just having a democracy doesn't automatically fix huge economic gaps.
And if those numbers are a little abstract, this cartoon just hits you right in the gut. This is what that inequality looks like in practice. The economic gains are all pumping iron at the top, getting stronger and stronger, while the poor in the middle are left with pretty much scraps. It's a really powerful image, isn't it?
So here's a major takeaway and another exam alert for you. Democracies are founded on the idea of political equality. One person, one vote. Everyone is equal at the ballot box. But they have really struggled to achieve economic equality. And bridging that gap between political and economic fairness, well, that's one of the biggest challenges for democracies everywhere.
Okay, let's move on to the third and final subject on our report card, the social report. This is all about how well democracies manage social diversity. I mean, what happens when you have a country with lots of different groups, different beliefs, and potential conflicts?
Well, this is one area where democracy really shines. You could even say it gets an A+. It is absolutely the best system we have for handling social differences and conflicts peacefully. Just think about it for a second. Other systems, like dictatorships, often try to suppress differences, to force everyone to be the same. But democracy, it creates a framework, a space, for different groups to negotiate and live together.
Now, for this to actually work, there are two crucial conditions that have to be met. First, democracy isn't just about the majority ruling over everyone else. The majority needs to work with the minority. And second, the idea of a majority can't be permanent. It can't be based on something you're born with, like your religion or ethnicity. Anyone should have a chance to be in the majority at some point.
And these two cartoons show the two paths a democracy can take. On one side, you have different groups seeing each other as enemies. That's what happens when those conditions we just talked about aren't met. But on the other side, you see the ideal outcome. These different groups are able to greet each other, to find a way to live together. That's the real goal.
So, we've looked at the political, the economic, and the social grades. So what's the final verdict?
Well, this is where we need to look beyond just the data and the charts. Because maybe, just maybe, the most important thing democracy delivers isn't something you can easily measure. Maybe it's all about dignity and freedom.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. The passion for respect and freedom are the basis of democracy. It's not just about voting or laws, it's about a fundamental human need to be treated with dignity.
And this isn't just some fluffy philosophical idea. It has very real consequences. Because democracy recognizes that all individuals are equal. It gives power to those who have been marginalized. It strengthens the claims of women fighting for equality in societies that have been dominated by men. It gives a voice to disadvantaged groups demanding a fair shot. No other form of government is fundamentally built on that principle.
So when you think about it, democracy's exam is never really over. It's constantly being tested. And guess what? We are all the examiners. We've gone through the report card. We've looked at politics, economics, social diversity, and dignity. So now the final question really is for you. How would you grade it? What do you think is the most important outcome of all? That's something every single one of us has to think about.
Thank you for watching with us. See you next time.